Sushant Soni. I'm MBBS MAMC, MD Pathology, Resident Hemato-Oncology, AIIMS Delhi. So let us have a look at an extremely important topic, that is flow cytometry. One question already came from this in the dot plots in November AIIMS. This is an important prospective topic and is again extremely important for both the mid-year exams, that is the May AIIMS, the June PGI, as well as NEET 2021. So let us start with flow cytometry. First point, starting with the principle of flow cytometry. What do we do in this? Just say, starting with the principle of flow cytometry. In flow cytometry, we take the sample. The sample can be anything. It can be peripheral blood, or a bone marrow aspirate. The sample is either peripheral blood or bone marrow aspirate. We take the sample and we make sure that the cells fall one by one. This is called as streamlining the cells. Streamlining the cells in a single linear flow. We make sure that the cells fall one by one. Next point, we hit the cells with a laser. So laser is always on. The most commonly used laser is the blue laser. Which has a wavelength of 488 nanometers. Most commonly used blue laser with a wavelength of 488 nanometers. Next point, so cells are falling one by one. We are hitting the cells with a laser. Next, when laser hits the cell, some light goes forward. That is called as forward scatter. Whereas some goes to the side. That is side scatter. When laser hits the cell, some light goes forward. That is forward scatter, versus some goes to the side. That is side scatter. More is the size of the cell, higher would be the forward scatter. Whereas more is the granularity of the cell, higher will be the side scatter. More is the granularity, the more the laser will be scattered to the side, that is higher will be the side scatter. So I can safely say forward scatter depicts size of the cell, side scatter depicts granularity. This was a written one-liner question last year in May AIIMS. Side scatter depicts granularity of the cell. Next point. So now you can safely tell me cell with the highest side scatter in peripheral blood. Answer bache. Which cell has the highest side scatter? Answer. Which is the most granular cell in peripheral blood? We are talking of leukocytes here. There are just 4-5 main leukocytes, that is neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, lymphocyte, monocyte. Highest side scatter, neutrophil. The most granular leukocyte, neutrophil. Whereas lowest side scatter, this is easy. Answer. Which is the agranular leukocyte? The agranular will have the lowest side scatter, that is lymphocyte. So highest side scatter neutrophil, lowest side scatter lymphocyte. Next, forward scatter depicted size of the cell. So highest forward scatter. Answer. Which can be the largest leukocyte in peripheral blood? Which can be the largest leukocyte? Blast. So remember blast, if they are more than or equal to 20%, they are seen in acute leukemias. Let me write it on the side here only. Blasts, if they are more than or equal to 20%, either in peripheral blood or bone marrow, the diagnosis is acute leukemia. And blasts, they are large immature cells. They are large immature cells, about 2.5 to 3 times, about 2.5 to 3 times the size of a lymphocyte. 2.5 to 3 times the size of a lymphocyte. So they are the largest cells. So highest forward scatter blasts, versus lastly lowest forward scatter. Next is lowest forward scatter, which is the smallest cell in peripheral blood. It is again lymphocyte. Lowest forward scatter, lymphocyte. So on the basis of flow cytometry, we can divide the cells on size and granularity. We have seen the largest size, that is blast, highest forward scatter, highest side scatter, neutrophils, lowest forward scatter and lowest side scatter, lymphocyte. Next point. Now I have not purchased this expensive machine just to divide the cells on the basis of size and granularity. Next, then why have I purchased the machine? I have purchased the flow cytometer to subtype my cells. Flow cytometry, it is used for subtyping of the cells. What do we mean by this? Let us assume that I have 5 cells with me and I want to check which of these are the B cells. I want to see which of these are the B cells. Which is the pan B cell marker? Pan B cell marker means it is present on all the B cells, CD19. Pan B cell marker, that is, it is present on all the B cells, CD19. So I add anti-CD19 antibody. And I give it a black color. What we mean by this is, when this cell will get hit by a laser, it will emit a black light. So when I added the anti-CD19 antibody, it goes and binds to all the B cells. As a result, we will know that these are the B cells. Next, pan T cell marker. Pan T cell marker, that is, it is present on all the T cells, CD3. So I add CD3 antibody. I add anti-CD3 antibody to the sample and I give it a red color. The colors are available in the market. Like for example, I'm wearing a black jacket right now. You might be wearing a blue one and so on. So I went to the market and said, "Here, please give me anti-CD3 antibody." He told me it's in green, red, blue. Which one do you want? I took the red color. So when laser will hit this cell, it will emit a red light, telling me that it is a T cell. Next, which is the stem cell marker? Stem cell marker, CD34. So I add stem cell marker, CD34. So I add anti-CD34 antibody. I give it a blue color. As a result, when this cell will get hit by a laser, it will emit a black light, telling me that it is a B cell. We had given black color to CD19, telling me that it is a B cell. And it will emit a blue light, telling me that it is a stem cell or a blast. So for subtyping the cells in flow cytometry, we need to know the CD markers. Like you and I, we have our names. It's a fact. So similarly, if I have to call you, I have to remember your name. Similarly, if we have to subtype the cells, we have to remember the CD markers. This is the principle of flow cytometry. That is, we make sure the cells fall one by one and we hit them with a laser. Next point. So this gets us to the CD markers. An extremely important list, again repeatedly asked, CD markers associated with various cells. Starting with the B cell markers. Starting with the B cell markers. B cell markers. You already know that the pan B cell marker, that is, which is present on all the B cells, CD19. Next, mature B cell marker. Mature B cell marker. B cells, they mature in the bone marrow. So as the cells mature, CD20 is positive versus the immature B cell marker. Answer bache. In the bone marrow, we have the most immature B cell, intermediate form and a mature form. The immature B cell, it is positive for CD10, and as it matures, CD20 becomes positive. Next, other B cell markers. They are CD79A and CD22. Next point. These were the facts. This unfortunately has to be remembered. The B cell markers. Next is the T cell markers. Firstly, you very well know pan T cell marker CD3. You know this. But let us go a step further. T cells, they mature in thymus. So in the thymus, we first have an immature form, intermediate, and then the mature form. CD3 expression in the most immature form, where will it be present? In the cytoplasm or the surface? Cytoplasm. So pan T cell marker is cytoplasmic CD3. Next, not the surface one. As it matures, it comes onto the surface. Whereas the other T cell markers, they are CD4, CD8. You very well know 4 positive, 8 positive, helper cytotoxic, 2, 5 and 7. All the single digit markers, they are the T cell markers. Next, myeloid markers. Next point, myeloid markers. We can divide the myeloid markers into two types. That is myeloid specific and myeloid associated. MPO, that is myeloperoxidase. This is a myeloid specific marker versus CD13, CD33 and CD117, which are myeloid associated markers. Firstly, very obvious, what do we mean by specific versus associated? You're very right. 13, 33, 117 associated. What do we mean by this? Specific means they are in a relationship. Associated means just friends. Nobody knows this better than me, guys. So specific versus associated. Next, NK cell markers. Everybody knows this. It is CD16 positive, CD56 positive. NK cells, CD16 positive, 56 positive versus monocytic markers, which is CD14 positive, CD64 positive. So in a way, easy to remember. The youngest and the oldest, 1464 monocytic, middle to 1656 NK cell. These four options are usually given together. Next is the pan-leukocyte marker. Pan-leukocyte means it is present on all the leukocytes. Which are the leukocytes? Name the leukocytes. They are neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, basophils. Pan-leukocyte marker. It is present on all the leukocytes. Pan-leukocyte marker CD45. CD45. CD stands for cluster of differentiation. It is just a technicality. It is capital C, capital D. There is no space, no hyphen, nothing, just a number. CD45. Also called as LCA. That is leukocyte common antigen. Also called as LCA. That is leukocyte common antigen. Pan leukocyte marker. Pan leukocyte marker. And lastly, we are just doing a basic list of CD markers. Next is the stem cell marker. The stem cell marker. My primary aim in this class is not to tell you the CD markers, but have a look at the dot plots. Ahima, bache myeloperoxidase. I just saw your question. We divided the myeloid markers into two types, myeloid specific and myeloid associated. Myeloperoxidase, we will do this in general pathology. MPO or myeloperoxidase. This is a primary or the eosinophilic granule. This is primary or eosinophilic granule of neutrophils. It is a primary granule of neutrophils. Neutrophilic granules, we can divide them into three types. Primary or eosinophilic, secondary or specific, and tertiary. This is a primary granule of neutrophils. Next point. So if it is a primary granule, it is present in all the myeloid series cells. That is why it is a myeloid specific marker. Next point, stem cell marker. Stem cell marker, you very well know, CD34. Other stem cell markers are TDT, which stands for terminal deoxytransferase. TDT, that is terminal deoxytransferase, TDT, and CD99. Stem cell markers, CD34, TDT, CD99. Before we go further, tell me TDT, terminal deoxytransferase. It is a stem cell marker, so it will be present on immature cells. Immature cells is blasts. It will be present on blasts. Which blasts? Myeloblast or lymphoblast? Lymphoblast. Which lymphoblast? Lymphoblasts are of two types. B lymphoblasts and T lymphoblasts. It is seen in T lymphoblasts. That is, it is a feature of TALL. TDT, terminal deoxytransferase. It is seen in TDT. Next point. So these were the CD markers. This gets us to our main prospective question, which can be asked from flow cytometry. That is interpretation. Interpretation of flow cytometry. Interpretation of flow cytometry. This is performed by dot plots. Flow cytometry, the result, it is interpreted as dot plots. That means each individual cell is represented with a dot. Now, before we go further, quick recap. Forward scatter depicts size of the cell. Side scatter depicts granularity of the cell. Pan leukocyte marker, CD45. All of you know this. So, if I have to plot CD45 with side scatter, remember, side scatter depicts granularity. Pan leukocyte marker, CD45. What we see here is neutrophils. This is a fact. This is what it looks like. Neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, and blasts. I want all of you to draw this in your notebooks, because the next point I'll be giving this to you as a homework types. So CD45 side scatter, neutrophil, lymphocyte, monocyte, blast. This is a mathematical graph. So Shivangi Bache, thanks for the kind words. So what we see here is, if this is CD45, dim, intermediate, high. This is how we do it, left to right maths: dim, intermediate, high. Side scatter, low, intermediate, high. Side scatter, low, intermediate, high. So you tell me, first let us start with CD45, then we'll go to side scatter. Starting with lymphocytes. Lymphocytes, they have high CD45. Lymphocytes, they have high CD45, low side scatter. Low side scatter. Why? Because they are agranular in nature, so low side scatter. Next point, monocytes. Monocytes, they have high CD45. High CD45, intermediate side scatter. They are slightly more granular than lymphocytes, intermediate side scatter. Neutrophils. Neutrophils, intermediate CD45. Intermediate CD45, high side scatter. Which is the most granular cell in peripheral blood? Neutrophil. Intermediate CD45, high side scatter. And last is blast. Last is blast, which have a dim to intermediate CD45, low side scatter. The graph tells you that this is CD45 side scatter. This is CD45 side scatter. Next point. This is a dot plot. So now you draw it and show it to me. CD34 side scatter. I know you cannot show it here, but CD34 side scatter. The next prospective question, it is going to be on dot plots. This is an important topic and this is all to be understood. You cannot rectify this, but this has to be understood. CD34 side scatter. You very well know CD34, it is a stem cell marker. So 34 will be positive in stem cells or blasts. So blasts will be 34 positive. All other cells will be 34 negative. You know this. So blasts, they are 34 positive, low side scatter. Rest all the cells are negative. This is the positive negative cutoff. Rest all are negative. So neutrophils, CD34 negative, high side scatter. Monocytes, CD34 negative, intermediate side scatter. Lymphocytes, 34 negative, low side scatter. See, it is the same properties that we are seeing. Blasts and lymphocytes have a low side scatter. Monocytes, देखो, blasts and lymphocytes have a low side scatter. Monocytes have an intermediate side scatter versus neutrophils, which has a high side scatter. This is flow cytometry dot plots. Extremely important. We saw the two main ones, CD45 side scatter and CD34 side scatter. Extremely important. Next, let us have a look at one more and slightly tougher, forward scatter, side scatter. Before I go further, first tell me, are all of you comfortable with both of these dot plots? 45 side scatter and 34 side scatter. But these are important. I will show you the question which came in these recent papers. Next is forward scatter versus side scatter. Forward scatter versus side scatter. Let us put side scatter on x-axis, forward scatter on y-axis. You very well know again, side scatter depicts granularity of the cell. Side scatter depicts granularity of the cell versus forward scatter, which depicts size of the cell, which depicts size. So firstly, let us start with forward scatter. First, let's draw the x-axis. Which is the cell with the highest forward scatter? Cell with highest forward scatter? Blast. Remember the largest leukocyte, the highest forward scatter? Blast. So blasts, they have a high forward scatter, low side scatter. Spelling mistake. Blasts, they have high forward scatter, low side scatter. You very well know that blasts and lymphocytes have low side scatter. Next point, lymphocyte. The smallest cell in smallest leukocyte, lymphocyte. Lymphocyte has low forward scatter, low side scatter. Monocytes are larger than lymphocytes, so they have a intermediate forward scatter, intermediate side scatter. Monocyte and neutrophil are equal in size, so neutrophils, intermediate forward scatter, high side scatter. See, this is the same thing which we saw earlier. Lymphocytes have low side scatter. They are the smallest cells, so they have a low forward scatter. Monocyte and neutrophils. Monocyte have intermediate side scatter. Neutrophils have a high side scatter. They are almost of the similar size, so they have a intermediate forward scatter. Versus blasts, which are the largest cells, so they have the highest forward scatter, low side scatter. This is forward scatter versus side scatter. These are the dot plots. Next point. So let us have a look at the question which came in this paper. Starting with the first one. I am sure we have already discussed this, so you will be knowing about it. A Flowcytometry dot plot was given. The first image, it was told to you that this is normal. The first set was normal, whereas the second set was the patient. What we see in normal is CD19 positive, low side scatter. These are the B cells. Versus the normal B cells, which are 19 positive, 40 positive. 19 positive, CD40 positive. This was normal. In the patient, CD19 positive cells, they were 40 negative. This was the combination given, 19 positive, 40 negative. Diagnosis. This was a case of hyper IgM syndrome. Which is a B cell defect which is associated with mutations in. It is a B cell defect associated with mutations in CD40 ligand. Next point. Chronic granulomatous disease was a defect in NADPH oxidase pathway. PNH, it is hemolytic anemia, acquired defect in PIGA gene. AILS, autoimmune lymphoproliferative syndrome. AILS, autoimmune lymphoproliferative syndrome, shows double negative T cells, 4 negative, 8 negative, which are alpha beta positive. Not concerned. Next, diagnosis. Again, an important prospective question. Diagnosis. Everybody, I am not giving you the options in this. Examiner is telling you that he is plotting CD59 with CD235. The first set is normal. Whereas the second set is the patient. Diagnosis. देखो, even if you do not know that CD235, this is a RBC marker, even if you were not aware of it, what you are able to see is normally the cells are CD59 positive. Normally cells are CD59 positive versus in the patient in which there is a huge arrow on CD59 negative cells. Diagnosis, this was a huge hint. PNH. You are very right. Diagnosis, PNH. PNH, paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. PNH. It is an acquired mutation. In PIGA gene present on X chromosome. Because of this acquired mutation, there is deficiency of GPI linked anchor proteins. Numerous anchor proteins are deficient, but the most significant is deficiency of CD55 and CD59. Most significant is deficiency of CD55 and 59. Out of these two, which one is even more significant? Deficiency of CD55 or 59? Which is more significant? Deficiency of CD59. So whenever in PNH a dot plot is given, they will either be giving you CD55 or 59 with a clone which is 55 or 59 negative. That was PNH. Lastly, I can safely say that the most specific test for PNH is DAF and MIRL, totally agreed, 55-59. Most specific test is FLAIR, that is fluorescent pro-aerolysine test. Most specific test for PNH, FLAIR, fluorescent pro-aerolysine test. FLAIR, followed by, that is the second most specific test for PNH, Flowcytometry. नहीं बचे, when the most specific test for PNH is asked, the best answer is FLAIR, fluorescent pro-aerolysine test. This is the most specific test for PNH, followed by flowcytometry. Done. So this takes care of your important prospective question, that is flowcytometry and the principle and the dot plots associated with it. Lastly, I am launching a crash course for the mid-year exams, that is the MEMS and the PGI, taking care of all the prospective questions in pathology, the new pattern questions and stuff, in which you very well know that for the students who have already given the paper, the result is on 31st. So you guys are not in the mindset of studying with concentration just 2-3 days before the result. I am very well aware of that. So I am launching the course on the Unacademy app on 5th February. In Feb, we will be taking care of systemic pathology. In which 3 chapters will be done in the month of February. Just in 5.5 hours, we will make a whole schedule on the Unacademy app, that is kidney, liver, lungs and GIT. These are the 4 chapters which will be taken care of in the month of Feb. Next, March, I will finish off the remaining chapters in systemic path, that is CVS, female genital system, endocrine, plus hematology. And April will be general pathology plus revision. Of all the previous topics. This is the crash course. This is the crash course for the mid-year exams for pathology, the total duration of which will be approximately 17 hours. The pathology Feb, I'm starting with a slightly lower number of hours because you very well know that because of the result and stuff, you will be slightly less enthusiastic. Done, bache. It was excellent interacting with you all, and I hope everybody is comfortable with this. In case you have any queries whatsoever, you can simply email them to me at sushant-soni@gmail.com. sushant-soni@gmail.com. Take care and